which sounds eerily like George Lucas's lightsaber collection. Sound effects by Lucasfilms. Long ago, disconnected from ears, eyes, and fingers, the heart had never fell prey to beauty, or to musical voice, or to feel silken skin. The maiden was terrified by the sight of the hairy heart, for it is shrunken and covered in long black hair. What have you done? Put it back where it belongs, I beseech you. Seeing that this was necessary to please her, the warlock drew forth his wand, unlocked the crystal casket, sliced open his own breast, and placed the hairy heart in the empty cavity where it had once been. Now you are healed, and you will know true love, cried the maiden, and she embraced him. The touch of her soft white arms, the sound of her breath in his ear, the scent of her heavy gold hair, all pierced the newly awakened heart like spears. It had grown strange, blind, and savage in the darkness, and its appetites had grown powerful and perverse. The guests at the feast noticed that the absence of their host and the maiden had first done trouble, but they grew anxious as the hours passed and finally began to search the castle. They found the dungeon at last. A most dreadful sight awaited them. The maiden lay dead upon the floor, her breast cut open, and beside her crouched the mad warlock, holding in one bloodied hand the great smooth, shining scarlet heart, which he licked and stroked, vowing to exchange it for his own. In his other hand he held his wand, trying to coax from his own chest the shriveled, hairy heart, but the hairy heart was stronger than he was, and it refused to relinquish its hold upon the senses or to return to the coffin which had been locked away for so long. Before the horror-struck eyes of his guests, the warlock cast aside his wand and seized a silver dagger. Vowing never to be the master by his own heart, he hacked it from his own chest. And for one moment, the warlock knelt triumphant. With the heart clutched in each hand, he fell across the maiden's body and died. The end. Orange, it's such a dark tale. If you have any questions, you can ask them. If not, I'm going to proceed to read other stories.
Well, I have a question, Professor.
Oh, I can hardly wait.
So why is that your particular favorite story? Because it's so spooky?
Because the blood is the life.
What?
The blood is the life.
Oh.
Snape has favorite movies. And this book uses Star Wars sounds. That might be one of my favorite moments. That and the Big Bang Theory thing that happened yesterday. Is anybody here for my class yesterday? Yes. Somebody good. Very excited by the Big Bang Theory question. I'm not going to tell you, so if you weren't there, then hashtag Big Bang Theory Snape perfectbiteburger.com. I don't know what I'm going. I think it's SheldonCooperSnape.com.
Yeah.
All right, how are we doing on the hour?
4:30.
4:30. I have another half an hour. Look at that. All right. You'd think after a while you would get tired of my sort of droning on and on about tales, but we're all still there.
Professor Snape,
Oh, yes.
are we going to be graded in this class?
There are two answers to this question, and the foremost is no, but the second one, and albeit the more important one, is are you going to be evaluated? And the answer to that is you are always evaluated. You understand my meaning? If I understand correctly, that's sort of a tee-hee thing. No
spooky
growth
stare.
teeth, Victoria. You hear me? Proper Slytherins do not grow up and tee. They might be careful. They definitely sneak.
Snicker.
Or sneak.
Do you like Snickers, Professor Snape?
I can no longer eat Snickers.
Aww.
Because my Lily has a peanut allergy.
Oh.
So I love Lily more than Snickers.
Have you tried soy nut butter?
I tried what?
Soy nut butter?
It's not me. Why should I suffer through soy? Let's get a few things right in the potions world, alright? Alright, here's some potions 101 for you. You should be copying this down. Soy is not a substitute for
Anything.
anything.
I'm sorry, what was that, Professor? Soy is not a substitute for anything at all?
Anything. Now, put your hand down, you silly girl.
I'm sorry, I forgot
Having
my quill,
having
Professor.
said that, for those of you with a lactose intolerance who cannot take milk, almond milk is delightfully good. Try it. Almond Breeze is delightful. It comes in vanilla and it is fantastic in cereal. Breakfast Potions 101. I'm going to move on now to the Fountain of Fair Fortune. The only story in the book that has a song. I don't know how the English book reads, but the American book says, waggle the book and sing.
Are you mimicking the flow of water? It's kind of watery.
Hufflepuffs, I don't know. See that out of this tasting.
You try saying Casa Frasso. That's Hufflepuff anytime.
Really?
Yeah, in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the Italian version says Casa Frasso for Hufflepuff, and Gryffindor for Gryffindor, and Serpe Verde for Slytherin, and Corvinere for Ravenclaw.
You pride yourself in being insufferable as well.
Yes. But Casa Frasso does sound better than Hufflepuff.
Anybody else think that the Lovegoods are like the hippies of the entire Harry Potter universe? They're like, yeah, it's a tea.
They were all
Hashtag
groovy.
One day, I swear to God, I'm going to do Snape stand-up. I swear it's going to happen. It's going to be me on stage being mean and everybody laughs anyway. It's no different than regular Snape, except for everybody laughs. I could do this for another 30 minutes. Thank you. The Fountain of Fair Fortune. High on a hill in an enchanted garden, enclosed by tall walls, protected by strong magic, flowed the Fountain of Fair Fortune. You okay? You need to have a drink like Once a year, between the hours of sunrise and sunset on the longest day, a single fortunate was given the chance to fight their way to the fountain, bathe in its waters, and receive fair fortune furthermore. On the appointed day, hundreds of people would travel from all over the kingdom to reach the garden walls before dawn, male, female, rich, poor, young, old, magical means, and without. They gathered in the darkness, each hoping that they would be the one to gain entrance to the garden. Three witches, each with their own burden of woe, met on the outskirts of the crowd and told one another their sorrows as they waited for the sunrise. First was Asha, so sick of malady no healer could cure. She hoped that the fountain would banish her symptoms and grant her a long and happy life. The second, Althea, been robbed of her home, her gold, and her wand by an evil sorcerer. She hoped that the fountain might relieve her of her powerlessness and her poverty. The third, Amata, had been deserted by a man whom she loved dearly, and she thought her heart would never mend. She hoped the fountain would relieve her of her grief and longing. Pitying each other, the three women agreed that should the chance fall to them, they would unite and try to reach the fountain together. As the sun was rent from the first day, a chink in the wall opened. The crowd surged forward, each of them shrieking their claim for the fountain. Creepers from the garden beyond snaked through the pressing mass, twisting themselves around the first witch, Asha. She grasped the wrist of the second witch, Althea, who seized tight upon the robes of the third witch, Amata. And Amata became caught upon the armor of a dismal-looking knight who was seated on a bone-thin horse. The creepers tugged the three witches through the chink in the wall, and the knight was dragged off of his steed and along after. Furious screams from the disappointed throng rose up in the morning air and fell silent as the garden walls sealed once more, not entirely unlike another one of Rowling's stories where X number of people, in that case 3, were allowed to get through and 4 went through. In this case 1 was supposed to go through and yet 4 went through again. Kudos, Miss Rowling. Asha and Althea were angry at Amata, who had accidentally brought along the knight. Only one can bathe in the fountain. It will be hard enough to decide which one of us will be. Now we're adding another. Now, Sir Luckless, a dreadful name to be born with, as the knight was known in the land outside the walls, observed that these were witches and having no magic nor any great skill at jousting or dueling or swords or anything that distinguished him from any non-magical man. He was sure he had no hope of beating the three women to the fountain. He therefore declared his intention of withdrawing outside the walls again. At this, Amata got angry also. Faint heart, draw your sword, knight, and help us reach the goal. And so the three witches and the forlorn knight ventured forth into the enchanted garden. With rare herbs, fruits, and flowers grew in abundance on either side of the sunlit paths. They met no obstacle until they reached the foot of the hill where a fountain stood. There, however, wrapped around the base of the hill was a monstrous white worm, bloated and blind. At their approach, it turned a foul face upon them. There is no image for that, sorry. And uttered the following words, "Pay me proof of your pain." Sir Luckless drew his sword and attempted to kill the beast, but his blade snapped. Then Althea cast rocks at the worm, while Asha and Amata essayed every spell that might subdue it. But the power of their wands was no more effective than their friend's stones or the knight's steel. The worm would not let them pass. The sun rose higher and higher in the sky. Remember, they have to do this by sunset. This is what we call tension. As the sun rose higher and higher in the sky, Asha, despairing, began to weep. Then the great worm placed its face upon hers, drank the tears from her cheeks. Picture that. Its thirst satisfied, the worm slithered aside and vanished into a hole in the ground. Rejoicing at the worm's disappearance, the three witches and the knight began to climb up the hill, sure that they would reach the fountain before noon. Halfway up the steep slope, however, they came across words cut into the ground before them. "Pay me the fruit of your labors." Sir Luckless took out his only coin and placed it upon the grassy hillside, but it rolled away and was lost. The three witches and the knight continued to climb, but they walked for hours and they advanced not a step. When the summit came no nearer, and still the inscription lay in the ground before them. They were all discouraged as the sun rose over their heads and began to sink towards the far horizon. Althea worked farther and harder and faster than any of them, and exhorted by the others to follow her example, she moved no further up the enchanted hill. "Courage, friends, who do not yield," she cried. wiping the sweat from her brow. As the drops fell glittering onto the earth, the inscription blocking their path vanished, and they found they were once again able to move upward once more. Delighted by the removal of the second obstacle, they hurried towards the summit as fast as they could until, at last, they glimpsed the fountain, glittering like crystal in a shower, surrounded by flowers and trees. Before they could reach it, however, there came to a stream that ran across and down the hilltop, barring their way. In the depths of the clear water lay a smooth stone bearing the words, "Pay me the treasure of your past." Sir Luckless attempted to float across the stream on his shield, but it sank. And the witches pulled him from the water and tried to leap the brook themselves, but it would not let them cross, and all the while the sun was sinking lower into the sky. So they fell into pondering the meaning of the stone's message, and it was Amata who was the first to understand it. Taking her wand, she drew from her mind all the memories of the happy times she had spent with her vanished lover and dropped them into the rushing waters. The stream swept them away, and the stepping stones appeared, and the three witches in the night were able to, at last, pass the summit of the hill. The fountain shimmered before them, set amidst herbs and flowers rarer and more beautiful than any they had ever seen. The sky burned ruby, and it was at that time they needed to decide which one of them, because only one can do it, bathed in the fountain. Before they could make the decision, however, frail Asha fell to the ground, exhausted by the struggle. She was so close to death. Her friends would have carried her to the fountain, but Asha was in mortal agony and begged for no one to touch her. And then Althea hastened to pick all those herbs that she had been passing and mixed them in Sir Luckless's gourd of water and poured the potion into Asha's mouth. At once, Asha was able to stand. What more, all the symptoms of her dread had vanished. "I'm cured," she cried. "I've no need of the fountain. Let Althea bathe in it." But Althea was busy collecting more herbs in her apron. "If I can cure this disease, I can earn gold aplenty. Let Amata bathe." Sir Luckless bowed and gestured to Amata towards the fountain, but she shook her head. The stream had washed away all of her regret. Now she could see that he had been cruel and faithless, and it was happiness enough to be rid of him. "Good sir, you must bathe, as a reward for your chivalry," she told Sir Luckless. So the knight clinked forth in the last rays of the setting sun, bathed in the fountain of fair fortune, astonished that he was chosen. And the sun fell below the horizon. Sir Luckless emerged from the waters with the glory of his triumph upon him, flung himself in his rusty armor at the feet of Amata, who was the kindest and most beautiful woman he had ever beheld. Flushed with success, he begged for her hand and heart, and Amata, no less delighted, realized that she had found a man worthy of them. And the three witches in the night set off down the hill together, arm in arm. And all four of them led long and happy lives, and none of them ever knew or suspected that the fountain's waters carried no magical enchantment at all. Time check. I have 10 minutes. Can I read the Three Brothers in 10 minutes?
Give it a try.
You're now going to hear the 10-minute or less version of The Tale of the Three Brothers. This is where the leavers leave and the stayers stay.
Excuse me. Yep.
All right.
Beginning now.
Oh, 1 second, Professor. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Oh,
Thank you. That was it.
without his permission. No signature for you.
Beginning now. There once were three brothers who traveled along a lone and winding road at twilight. In time, the brothers reached a river too deep to wade through and too dangerous to swim across. However, these brothers were learned in magical arts, and so they simply waved their wands and made a bridge appear to cross the treacherous water. They were halfway across it when they found that their path was blocked by a hooded figure. The hooded figure would be?
Death.
Death, thank you. And Death spoke to them. He was angry that he had been cheated out of 3 new victims, who were travelers usually drowned in the river. But Death was cunning. He pretended to congratulate the 3 brothers upon their magic, and said that each had earned a prize for having been clever enough to evade him. So the oldest brother, who was a combative man, asked for a wand more powerful than any in existence. A wand that must always win duels for its owner, a wand worthy of a wizard who had conquered death. So Death crossed to an elder tree on the banks of the river and fashioned a wand from a branch that hung there and gave it to the oldest brother. This wand became known as
The Elder Wand.
Thank you. The second brother, who was an arrogant man, decided he wanted to humiliate Death still further and asked for a power to recall others from death. But we all know you can't truly do that, right?
Right.
Death picked up a stone from a riverbank and gave it to the second brother and told him that the stone would have the powers to bring back the dead. And then Death asked the third and the youngest brother what he would like. The youngest brother was the humblest and also the wisest of the brothers, and he did not trust Death. So he asked for something that would enable him to go forth from that place without being followed by Death, and Death most unwillingly handed over his own cloak of invisibility. And Death stood aside and allowed the 3 brothers to continue on their way. Bless you. And they did so, taking with them the wonders of adventure they had had and admiring Death's gifts. In due course, the brothers separated, each to form his own destination. The first brother traveled on for a week or more, and reaching a distant village, sought out a fellow wizard with whom he had a quarrel. Naturally, the elder wand as his weapon, he could not fail to win the duel that followed, and leaving his enemy dead upon the floor, the oldest brother proceeded to an inn, where he boasted loudly how powerful the wand is, and how he beat Death himself, and how it had made him invincible. That very night, another wizard crept upon the oldest brother as he lay, wine sodden upon his bed. The thief took the wand, and for good measure slit the oldest brother's throat. And so Death took the first brother for his own. Meanwhile, the second brother journeyed to his own home, where he lived alone. He took out the stone that had the power to recall the dead. He turned it thrice in his hand. To his amazement and delight, the figure of his girl that he'd once hoped to marry before her untimely death appeared at once before him. Yet she was sad and cold, separate as by a veil. Though she returned from the mortal world, she did not truly belong there and suffered. Finally, the second brother, driven mad with hopeless longing, killed himself as to truly join her. And so it was that Death took the second brother. But though Death searched for the third brother for many years, he was never able to find him. It was only when he attained a great age that the youngest brother finally took off the cloak of invisibility and gave it to his son. And he greeted Death as an old friend and went with him gladly as equals. He departed his life. We have probably like 1 to 2 minutes. If you have any questions about this in the next 1 to 2 minutes, ask them now. Fantastic, thank you.
I don't have the book, but I was listening to a podcast and they made a big deal out of the fact that it said that The Three Brothers was translated from the ancient runes by Hermione Granger.
Yes, in fact, it says at the very beginning of the book that the book itself is translated. Yes, the entirety of the book is meant to be translated from ancient runes by Hermione Granger. I find this odd, as it's a children's book in the movie that predates Hermione Granger, but nonetheless, I suppose with the time turner, she went back and did that. Also, if you want to know what really happened to me, look up How It Should Have Ended Harry Potter. Therein lies the true story. All right, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Thank you.